was engaged to the love of my life, but my sister met up with me and begged me to break it off. She said I had to leave him because they were in love, and he was just too afraid to break up with me because he didn't want to hurt me or my family. When I confronted my fiancé about my stepsister's accusations, he straight up denied him. He said she's been trying to come on to him for some time and he never mentioned it because he didn't want to ruin our relationship. He begged me not to believe her, and so we continued how we were. My stepsister grew resentful and made nasty comments about how I was forcing a man who didn't even love me to marry me because I had low self-esteem. A month later, I get a text from my sister. It's a video of her and my fiancé sleeping together in my bed, and multiple screenshots of him telling her he loved her, how he wished she was the girl he was marrying, and how he hated that I wouldn't let them be together. I was devastated and angry, but decided to move in silence. I went home, grabbed all my stuff, removed all my money from my joint account, and moved in with my dad. After that, I sent all the screenshots to my family and his. He tried getting back with me multiple times, but I ended up blocking him when I found out he proposed to my sister with the same ring he gave me. I left it behind. Now they're getting married. I was extremely hurt to find out that my mom, step-siblings, and stepdad were attending the wedding. When I tried to express my feelings, they dismissed me and said it wasn't their fault that I got in the way of true love and made me out to be some sort of vindictive Disney villain. So I cut contact with them and I barely spoke to my mom in 5 years. Fast forward and I get engaged to my now husband. Due to COVID, we had a small ceremony and I also fell pregnant. My dad and stepmom have been amazing throughout all of this. She knitted a pair of booties and posted them on Facebook and tagged me about how she's excited for her grandbaby. My mom didn't know I was pregnant. Shortly after, I received a phone call to confirm. Since then, she's invited me and my husband over to her house multiple times. I've declined every single time for the obvious reason. My ex-fiancé and stepsister live there. The next time my mom calls, I told her I didn't want them to keep inviting me over when they knew I would be forced to see my stepsister. I'm still hurt over what they did to me, and I told her I wasn't sure if I wanted people like them in my child's life. My mom was crying hysterically and kept saying I was being cruel and I couldn't deprive her of her first grandchild. She kept wailing about how I might be the only person in our family to even give her grandchildren. Am I wrong for trying to keep my mom out of my child's life?
Story time about why I made my boyfriend stop being friends with his girl best friend. So a little background information. I was in my sophomore year of high school, and my boyfriend and I had been dating for about 6 months. And he had been best friends with this girl, we're gonna call her Addie, for about 3 years. Now, I had known Addie way before that, probably since we were in kindergarten. But her and I weren't like BFFs, we were more of acquaintances. But obviously, we became friends because she was always around my boyfriend. A month after him and I started dating, I decided that we had to set boundaries for their friendship. Because they had first period together, right? Well, every morning at 9:45, I would go on Snapchat and I would see a picture of them. And it would be her kissing him on the cheek. Not only would it be on her story, but it would also be on his. And I had her on Snapchat before that. She had never done that, ever. So he said that he had talked to Addie about it, right? And things were good for the next 2 months. Then they were forced to work together on a project. Like for part 2. Part 2 about why I made my boyfriend stop being friends with his girl best friend. So like I said, they had been forced to work together on a school project. At least that's what he told me. So I brushed it off because I was not about to seem like the jealous girlfriend. Well, the next day, him and I were supposed to go out to the movies. So I texted him right before we were about to leave, and I said, "Hey, are you on your way to get me?" He goes, "OMG, no, I'm sorry, I forgot. I have to work with Addie on this project. She's about to come over my house." So at this point, I'm like really pissed off. So I text him and I say, "I thought you guys had a whole week to work on this project. Why does it have to be tonight?" Addie knew that him and I were supposed to go to the movies that night also. He said, "We just want to get it done really quickly so that way I can spend the rest of the week with you." And she's snapping me the whole time that she's at his house. Off of his phone. So at around 1:30 a.m., I get a Snapchat from her on his account, and she's laying on his chest. Like for part 3. Part 3 about why I made my boyfriend stop being friends with his girl best friend. So like I said, she snaps me at 1:30 in the morning, a picture of her laying on his chest, and it's captioned, "Hey girlie, I hope you don't mind, but I have to spend the night at his house. He lost track of time working on our project, and it's way too late for him to take me home." So at this point, I'm furious, and I don't snap her back. So the next morning, I call my boyfriend. And I asked him, "Hey, is Addie still there?" So he says yeah, and then I ask him to put me on speakerphone. So when he does, I say hi to Addie. She goes, "OMG, hey girl, how are you?" And that's when I pretty much go off on this bitch. I tell him that while he was asleep, she was sending me pictures of her laying on top of him, off of his Snapchat, and that she was sending those type of pictures to multiple people on his Snapchat, because my best friend had texted me that morning, saying that she thought that we broke up because Addie was sending her pictures of her laying on top of him. So I tell him, pick, me or her. And she starts crying. After a minute of silence, he hangs up the phone and then blocks me. Good luck to the next girl.
Story time about how I hooked up with my best friend's boyfriend a few days ago. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. A few days ago, I broke up with my boyfriend, and that same day, my best friend's boyfriend started texting me. Trust me, I know this is wrong, but he's so hot. Flirted back and forth through text, and after a while, he asked me to come over to his house. And I went. Oh yeah, and I've known my best friend since we were 4 years old. We haven't always been best friends because there was a time where we hated each other, but recently, in the past year, we've actually become good friends again. When he asked me to go to his house, I said yes. I knew my mom would say no, so instead I asked my brother if he could take me, and I promised him that I wouldn't do anything bad, and he said it was fine. Let's call my best friend's boyfriend Rex. Rex told me to run straight up to his room so that his family wouldn't see me, because they liked his girlfriend, who is my best friend. I got up to his room, we started watching The Notebook. He was being super sweet and affectionate, and soon he started trying to kiss me, and I kept saying no. But eventually I gave in, so we kissed and cuddled on his bed. Part 2 is up. So there I am making out with my best friend's boyfriend in his bedroom. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. After we kissed and cuddled for a while, of course I had to go home. After that, he started asking me to send him pictures, and I told him I couldn't do it because I felt guilty. He was dating my best friend after all. Then stupidly, I gave in and I sent him the picture because I just felt pressured by him. Finally, I told him that we couldn't keep seeing each other because it was just wrong. We agreed and stayed friends. Of course, I caught feelings and I was totally heartbroken. Oh, and did I forget to mention he was my first kiss? After a few days, I noticed that he unadded me from Snapchat. I messaged him and asked him why. He said he was catching feelings for me, but that he didn't want to lose his Playboy reputation. Got upset and ignored his messages, but that made him want me even more. Part 3 is up. So I caught feelings for my best friend's boyfriend. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. After we broke things off, he told me that he was catching feelings for me. But I've been ignoring him and his messages ever since. This has made him want me even more. So he actually broke up with my best friend and asked me to be his girlfriend. Of course I said no. I told him I couldn't believe what he was saying was true. How could he be with my best friend, hook up with me, break up with her to only be with me? He could turn around and do the same thing to me too. My best friend doesn't know that her boyfriend broke up with her because of me. She is so depressed because he left her. Now I feel terrible and I actually can't even sleep because of this. I want to tell her so bad, but I just can't bring myself to telling her. I had to talk to somebody, so I confided in a friend and I told her everything, and she's been helping me. But I still don't know what to do. What do you guys think I should do? Lesson learned. Definitely don't ever fall for your best friend's boyfriend. I know you guys are going to come for me in the comments, but I know that I did something wrong. But let's see what you all have to say.
This is part 2 of the time my mom faked her death so she didn't have to take care of me and my siblings. Like I said, my aunt told me that my mom had died and they cremated her and they let her keep the ashes and that she was going to start taking care of us. Me not knowing how long the cremating process actually took at the time since I was so young, I believed her. Until one day I saw my aunt getting picked up by the same black car that my mom used to get picked up by before she died. That's when I decided to check these supposed ashes, and it was actually flour. So one day when my aunt got picked up by this black car, I decided to follow her. I didn't have a car. I was 5 years old, so I had to follow them by walking and hiding behind bushes. I was able to follow them up the street, and once they turned the corner, and there I saw my mom standing on the side of the street. That's when I see the car stop and I see my aunt get out and approach my mother. She tells my mom to give her money for covering for her and taking care of me and my little brother. Mom says she faked her death because my dad wasn't in our lives and she didn't want to take care of us anymore. I'm older now and I cut her off completely and I have full custody of my little brother. This is the time my mom faked her death so she didn't have to take care of me and my siblings. Yes, this girl really faked her death. So at the time, I was 5 and my little brother was 3. It started off with my mom saying that she didn't feel well and she couldn't pick me up from school, so the bus would have to take me home. Well, a few months after, she started getting picked up from our house by this black car. She said that car was picking her up because of her so-called doctor's appointments. And she wasn't able to drive herself because she was too sick. Well, one day, when this car came to pick her up, she never came home. Me and my little brother were sitting around for a couple days waiting for her to come home, but she never came home, and we were young, so we didn't do anything. Eventually, my aunt came over to our house and told my little brother and I that our mom had passed away and that she was cremated and they kept the ashes. So our aunt started taking care of us. Until one day I saw my aunt getting picked up by that same black car. That's when I started to get suspicious of everything and I decided to check these ashes. When I checked, it was flour. Like for part 2.